Hello. This is the third and probably final say I'll have on the whole gerontocracy idea, and we don't let things die. The first video was about our society and politics, and the second video was about the media and what we're consuming and how both these things going on too long in certain patterns is bad. So now I'm going to talk about life itself, the extension of life, Brian Johnson, immortality, and we're going to get a little esoteric because I haven't been doing that in these talks. And this channel, it was primarily about art. And I mean, the reason I chose, like, as a little aside, the reason I chose art for this channel was because you're told on YouTube that you need to niche down a lot in order to find an audience. And I think I wanted to choose art because it was something I was interested in. I'm still interested in it. And I'm interested in all kinds of art. Primarily, I love music, but it's really hard to have a YouTube channel based around that. So I made it about visual art because in my head, it was easier to make videos about visual art. And it was, compared to music, because then you have to think of like copyright and all that. And if you want to explain music, you need to put it in your video, there was a video where I talked about music and I did not put any music, and some people complained, rightfully so. But anyway, this channel is gonna undergo somewhat of a change because now I'm not niching down. I'm niching out. There is no niche. I'm the niche. Whatever like strikes my mind, whatever strikes my fancy is what I'm gonna talk about. And that's just how I am. I can't talk about one subject forever. And I can't talk about one domain of life forever. To me, everything's holistic. To me, everything is one big interconnected web. It's one big system. So it all needs attention. It all gets filtered through my mind and categorized and linked, and my brain becomes like a big Wikipedia of things. So today we're going to go deep into immortality. And why do people want to be immortal? It's obvious. No one wants to die. Everyone's afraid of what's going to happen when you die. Like, right now, the winning theory among rational minds who are not religious. I think you can be rational and religious at the same time, which is something I didn't believe when I was like, I don't know, like late teenager, early 20s. Because I was just like, if you believe in like religion and stories, then you're fucking stupid. But now I'm a little older and I've realized that science has a lot of missing gaps. They have a lot of points where they basically say, I don't know what's going on here and we're not gonna talk about it. We're gonna make up shit to explain. We're gonna take this gap of information and we're gonna assign it a symbol. We're gonna name it and we're gonna assign it a symbol, and we're gonna somehow fit it into our equations, even though that like it is a constant, because like that's why they can do it, because it's a constant, but they don't know exactly what it is they're talking about. For instance, like dark matter and shit like that, and brain activity, scientists know that brain activity is a phenomenon, but they can't tell you like why it is, or like they'll just say like, oh, it's just something that happens, it's an emergent phenomenon, it's just something that evolved. Okay, some people want actual answers. Some people don't just want to like hand wave things, that's what a real thinker does. They try to find a good explanation instead of saying, well, that's just how things are. So immortality. Everyone wants to live forever. They don't want to die because this is all wrapped up in your own ego. This is all wrapped up in your sense of self. You cannot conceive of living an existence where you're not yourself, where you're not like, I'm not Whale Boy. I'm not the person who makes YouTube videos, who gets up every day and lives in this house and lives in this region. And I tell myself this story that one day I'm going to be successful with my YouTube career, or I'm going to make money. Like, when I die, all of that's going to go away. But I'm not going to have this body that I'm in. I'm not going to have all my possessions that I have. I'm not even going to live in this reality anymore. So why would I abandon all that, you know? Especially if you don't know that there's going to be something after. You don't know that for sure. And so we get into immortality, and there's a lot of people who are trying to extend human life, and I think that's good. I think human life should be extended somewhat. I don't think it should get to a point where we're living forever, because you know what else fucking has extended life and lives forever? Plastic. Plastic fucking does. And plastic is like gumming up the works of our ecosystem. If there's a big machine, plastics is like if the ecosystem is a big machine, plastics are like little spoons going into the gears. Like they've already had they were born, and naturally things are born, naturally things die, they get broken apart, and they get reused, reintegrated into the system. You see this in The Lion King. The deer eat the grass, and then the lions eat the deer, and then when the lion dies, it becomes food for the grass. And that's the circle of life. That's the circle of life. That's the big fucking machine that existence is. And plastic is an affront to that, because you create plastic out of chemicals. It's totally unnatural. Plastic is not naturally occurring. We've made this thing, and it doesn't die, it doesn't disintegrate, or it takes like tens of thousands of years to disintegrate. And it's just like it's destroying the environment, because it'd be one thing if it was like glass, where it would just stay like one big hunk. But plastic can melt, plastic can break apart into microscopic pieces. Like if glass breaks apart, it becomes dust. Okay, and like dust is fine, because glass is made out of like sand. Okay, and like dirt is everywhere. Sand is dirt. It's just really fine. But plastic is something else. Plastic is like chemicals. Plastic is like unnatural. That's why it's such a big insult to say someone injects themselves with a bunch of plastic to make themselves live longer. Plastic surgery. Like you're taking on the attributes of plastic. It's fake. It's unnatural. It doesn't go bad. Because plastic surgery is another aspect of how we are trying to achieve immortality, but it's a farce. It's like not a real immortality, because it just looks weird. Like it's like if you have an old car that's falling apart and you keep putting new parts on it, but like the engine and the inside is like rusting away. Like you can tell something's up, like when you drive it or when you see it in motion, you know, it's not going to look right. And that's what plastic surgery is. So that's one aspect of immortality. Brian Johnson, he is like a billionaire, and he is trying to do all these more internal like solutions. He is trying to make your organs as healthy as possible. He is trying to make his muscles last a long time, his tendons. You know, he's thinking of like what vitamins, what exact supplements you should use. He's blasting red light into his scalp. He is injecting himself with his son's blood, his young, youthful son. He's stealing his blood like a vampire, which is another metaphor for immortality. The vampire who needs to steal from younger life forms to sustain itself, to sustain its immortality. And it's all like everything in nature is pointing towards, hey, immortality is bad. It's fucking bad. It's not good, because life is in a flow. Life is a constant ebb and flow. It's a on off. It's in and out. It's alive, dead. It's a cycle. The cycle. That's what life is. It's a constant moving cycle. And when you try to disrupt that cycle, things go bad. Things go really bad. For example, rat utopia. Scientists, at some point back in the day, they got all these lab rats and they put them in a community, kind of like a little apartment complex, really big, lots of room. And they gave them unlimited food. And they took one natural aspect of life, which was you have a goal and you go achieve it because you need to eat. Humans do this all the time, like with our jobs. We just have it very abstracted. But in the animal kingdom, it's very simple. Your motivation is to go out, look for food, kill it, eat it. So when you take that out, there is, like, society falls apart. Society just collapses. At least it did for these mice. And a lot of people extrapolate that and say it's going to happen to humans, because what would happen is that the mice, they would have all this food, and there were no longer status. There were no longer ways to tell which mice were the good ones to mate with and which ones weren't. And they stopped caring. They would not undergo mating rituals. They would just, have their way with the female mice. They would run around in gangs, killing each other. There were a few mice who only cared about grooming themselves, like Clavicular and his whole group. You can see the parallels already in this example. And we're getting to that point where we might extend life. We might have such a surplus in our economy that we no longer need to work as hard, which to me sounds great, but that will give most people depression. I lived like 10 years like as a NEET, and I had extreme depression, and now I'm like over it. Now I'm like very productive. Now I'm very like, I'm in the process of like getting a job interview, like I processed all this like psychological stuff using meditation and binaural beats and esoterica. But I think most people are not going to do that. The mice certainly aren't going to do that. I'm sure there was one or two like enlightened mice who were watching all this go down, watching society collapse, and thinking they wish they could teach the other mice how to find peace. But like, humans are not meant to live a long time, because a lot of people say that death gives life meaning. And why is that? Why does death give life meaning? Because we like stories. Stories are little meaning packets of information for our brain. And when you're living in a story that does not have a foreseeable end, it gets frustrating. It gets like my story should have ended a long time ago. Like, that's why you hear a lot of old people, like, if they're not enjoying their life, they're like, oh, I wish the Lord would take me now, My grandma used to say that all the time. She used to just be like, I'm ready to go. Like, I tell the Lord every day to, like, and that's really sad, right? But when you're that old and you're still kicking, like, you don't have much to live for if you don't have the right mentality for that kind of life. Because we all operate on stories that we tell ourselves about our lives. And right now, the most popular story that we have is, we are born, we go to school, we get a job, we work that job, we find a wife, we have friends, or a partner. I don't know. That's doesn't necessarily have to be wife. I'm talking to all genders here. So you find a spouse, maybe you have kids if you do that. as a person. You spread your ideas, and you get old and you die. You die. That's the story of your life. That's it. But if we were to live like 1,000 years, then the story of our lives would look very, very different. We would end up having generations of family members that go on, you know, like imagine if everyone in your family tree were like still alive. Wouldn't that be weird? Wouldn't that be like the size of a small like town of family members? Like you're not going to know everyone. You're not going to be connected to all of them. You're not going to keep track of all of them because it's just simply impossible. It would be strange to live such a long life that you see your family members living as long as you, and it's just a big fucking weird family reunion all the time. And like imagine, like multiply this by like as many people there are on the planet, or at least in the West, where like such immortality surgeries would be viable to afford. America would get so overpopulated so fast if people were no longer dying. And maybe in the future maybe that's what we would need, but there's a lot of signs pointing that it's not going to be good. One of the examples I like to bring up is the FromSoft Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring series, because the major theme in all of those is there is one person who achieved immortality, and they are the head of state, and they have power and they cannot give it up. They no one can wrestle it from their fingers. They have been a head of state for literal hundreds of years. They have been a dictator. Everything they say goes, and they no longer can run their kingdom properly because they're just so old and they have gone crazy. They've gone insane. This is what almost every FromSoft game is about in the fantasy genre, in like Armored Core and all the other series. Like it's something different, but at the end of the day, it's all about how people don't want to give up their identity. They don't want to give up their power. They don't want to give up the material wealth that they have. And one of the biggest themes in those games is when you don't give up power, when you don't die, when you don't step aside, when you choose to live forever, things become corrupted. Just inherently things become corrupted, because in Japan, which is where this game company is from, they believe in this thing called in Shintoism, there's a belief called kegare. And what kegare is if you've ever seen like a pond usually has no flowing water. Okay? Because it's just a pond, it's a body of water. And so if you were to have a pond of very crystal clear water, eventually inside this pond, bugs will start settling, bacteria, just all kinds of nasty things, like just fish are going to be in there, like they're going to be dropped by like birds flying by or something. Like that's how ponds get populated. But like there's going to be algae, humans are going to come by, they're going to start dumping things into the water. And so if you have still water, the whole metaphor is if your life is frozen, if your power is frozen, if your place within society is just frozen, then it is susceptible to corruption inherently. It's a metaphysical principle. It is not something that science will say happens. Maybe ecology might, but they've noticed that this pattern occurs where like when someone's in power too long, when someone doesn't give it up, corruption is inevitable. And we're seeing that in our Senate, we're seeing that in our presidency, we're seeing that in our companies, We're seeing that in our country. And I think making people live longer would make it 10 times worse. Because now whoever's in power can just keep accumulating and accumulating. And like there's families, entire families that do this over time. But when you're rich, let's say you were born poor and then you become rich, there's a good likelihood that your kids are going to be too stupid to maintain your legacy. They're going to be too stupid to maintain the family estate. And that's because they grew up rich. They don't know what it's like to work hard unless they're forced somehow to understand that working hard is necessary. Unless you kind of raise them in a normal environment. You know, like maybe you're a billionaire, but you raise your kid to work for their own things and afford their own things, even though like you're a billionaire family, you have your kid work hard. And like maybe then like they will understand the lessons that you went through to achieve your wealth. So that's one kind of little defense mechanism that we have against rich people, is that their kids are stupid. And 9 times out of 10, they don't know what to do with the wealth. You know, look at Donald Trump. He made a lot of money when he was kind of like the heir to his father's company. And then he kind of like bullshitted the rest of the way. And he didn't get to where he was because he is some kind of master businessman who understands the art of the deal, which was a ghost-written biography, by the way. He got to where he was because he was a master bullshitter. And he bullshitted his way to the top, which you could say is a form of success, but it's not a respectable form of success. It's not a traditional business form of success. Like, he is plundering the Federal Reserve. He is plundering our tax dollars and enriching himself with that. So that is not a businessman. That is a con man. So just imagine if you had a bunch of billionaires just living forever. You know, it's not good. It's not natural. They're going to start killing each other at some point because there's going to be too many apex predators. That is elite overproduction. And imagine if elite overproduction had no solution. Imagine if we just kept making elites. They would literally rise up against each other and start killing each other because there's only so much room at the top. They're going to start playing King of the Hill. So, yeah, immortality can be good if a few, I shouldn't say if a few people have it, because like how are we going to decide? Usually what's going to happen is that the richest people are going to get it. So I think immortality is fine if maybe it doesn't go further than 100 years. Like, you live an extra 100 years and you're fit and cognizant enough to live that long. Like, maybe that's fine. Maybe that's even too much. I don't know. This is not really I'm just presenting a philosophical quandary. I'm not presenting a scientific, like, if we let these people live this long, then they will surely live too long, you know. Yeah, immortality bad. You should not want that. You should what life is about, and this is just my personal belief because a lot of people are afraid of dying. I personally believe because of things like astral projection that I've talked about in past videos, because of things like astral projection and similar phenomenon like psychic ability, that there's much evidence for, maybe not scientific in a lab, but there are many anecdotes and there are many schools where they teach you how to have psychic abilities. It points to the fact that there is something beyond our material existence. There is something beyond the atoms. We exist in fields of energy, and we have energy bodies. It's not just limited to our physical bodies. We have an entire system outside of this reality that we return to when we die. And this sounds crazy. If you have not heard me talk about this in detail, it sounds like I'm spouting insane like cult like ideas. But this is found in esoteric literature from decades, centuries, millennia past. You know, people back then figured this out. They went back into base principles. They discovered that there must have been a monad, a singular living consciousness that split itself and kept splitting itself into reality as we know it today. And why is that? Because if everything right now is multiplying and expanding, it must have come from something, and it could only have come from, like, if we keep reducing the multiplicities that happen in the universe, that keep happening, that everything's expanding. If we reduce that, if we go in the opposite direction, eventually we're gonna arrive at a single point. Okay, and that's a monad. And it worked very similar to at least according to the stories, it worked very similar to how we think of a computer, where it was breathing in and breathing out and breathing in and breathing out. And that was kind of like the ones and zeros. Okay. Eventually it breathed in and out, and then other how do you say it? Like other forms came to be from that. Like how other forms come to be within software. And physics got written, and I don't know the exact details. I don't think anyone knows, but we all have this same approximation. And this is from Christianity, but not the Christianity that was approved by the Catholic Church. It's from Gnosticism. And what Gnosticism is it was it was an aspect of Christianity, or there were certain books within the canon before things got formalized by the Catholic Church. Okay, at some point the Catholic Church was like, this is canon, this is non-canon. We don't believe in this other stuff, even though for a long time people were believing in the other stuff. And what the other stuff says is what I just told you about the monad. Like, there was a monad, there was this is some weird illusionary realm that we live in, governed by a false god. And like, I don't take that literally. I take that metaphorically, in the sense that there is something beyond our material universe. There is something beyond our material universe, and we can only glimpse shadows of it in this universe. And we believe that this is all there is. This is Plato's allegory of the cave. We're watching shadows. This is our reality. But there is when we die, we step outside the cave. I'm not saying you should die to take a look outside the cave. You can astral project and take a glimpse, but no one should be dying. No one should be commit sewer slide. No one should be doing that. So yeah, I think there is no need to fear death, but there is no need to expedite the process of your life, because life is the point of living is to live your life, to have experiences, to learn lessons, because all of that information gets fed back into the system through your consciousness, because this is all one consciousness system. So whatever experience you have just feeds the further learning experience of the larger universe and beyond. Does that sound insane? Because I think dying and nothing happens sounds more insane. I think that doesn't make sense. I think to live, to be born, and to have this crazy experience of life, and to love and to create and to take in the universe, and it all be for nothing, is idiotic. It's fucking dumb. Like, what do you mean? Oh, it's all for nothing. Just like, that's all it is. Are you shitting me? I don't think so, buddy. I think there is like a reason all this shit is going on, because there's a reason for everything else. There's a reason for physics. There's a reason for the sun going up. There's a reason for the earth spinning around. And we think those reasons, we think existence precedes, or those reasons precede existence. But I would like to say the opposite, that existence is the reason for those things that are occurring. We are not occurring because of those things. They, like, it's just too random. It's too random. Anyway, but yeah, so live your life, live it to the fullest, because that's like what you're here to do. Make good decisions, try to, but you might make bad decisions. Some people believe that everything's predetermined, because if you look at physics, you know, if you look at a chain reaction, it always ends up happening the same way. But there are there is evidence to the contrary, that when you look at a certain particle, this is like the double slit experiment, I think, that you can observe like different turning radiuses of some kind of particle. I don't know. I don't give a shit. Like, I just know that there's evidence to suggest that there is an element of randomness within the smallest visible molecules that we are able to detect. And to me, that makes all the difference. Because if there is randomness in life, then we really do have free will. And if we have free will, then we can live a free life. And we truly have freedom of choice. But even if everything is determined, because some people do believe that, which is what I was saying earlier. But some people, like, even if everything's predetermined and everything is happening the way it was meant to happen, everything is already written down, everything, like, you're just scrolling through it, like the head of a play button, or the playhead of like a YouTube video. We're just scrolling through it, and that's our life. You should still act as though you have free will. Why? Because you have to believe that. Like, you cannot observe things from like such a cosmic perspective of everything's predetermined. Like, you can't live your life that way. It's impractical. You should live your life as though you have freedom of choice, even if on a philosophical level you think there isn't, because you still have to suffer the consequences of your choices. And it'll make you feel a lot better if you own them. But yeah, I may have gotten a little too sidetracked, but I think it all connects, just like the universe. I think everything connects. I think there is a purpose for everything. I think to think otherwise is idiotic, to say the least. I think in the coming years, I think there will be more evidence to suggest that even right now, I mean, there are a lot of physicists coming up and saying they're going on podcasts and saying like, hey, we did all this, we did all these calculations, and it all suggests that there may be something outside of this material reality, that there may be Plato's realm of forms. I forgot what he called it. He called it like a world of forms. I don't know what, where every idea exists in perfect, just perfect reality. You know, there is a realm where a cup is the perfect cup, and that is what we all think of. It all informs our idea of what a cup is. Like, everything here in this reality is imperfect, but there is a realm of ideas that could exist. And so, some legitimate scientists are coming out and saying shit like that, which is, it's bonkers. It's insane. If you are not into this and you're just hearing this, you're like, what the fuck are you smoking? Like, how much acid have you done in the past 2 hours? None. I'm totally sober. Anyway, before this goes on too long, I just want to say, I hope you got something to think about. And I don't even know what the next video is going to be about, because I just keep going off on these. And It's definitely gonna have to be something way different. It's definitely gonna have to be something like not so cosmological. Anyway, thanks. Bye.